The Absolute at Large by Karel Čapek. Translated by David Wyllie. Performed by Francis Pass. Chapter 16. In the Mountains. Afternoon in a hut in Bear Valley. Rudolf Marek sits hunched on the veranda, looks at the newspaper, puts it away again, and looks out at the broad sweep of the Giants Mountains. It's quiet, the wide and crystalline quiet of the mountains, and the man sits up from his huddled position to take in some deep breaths. Below him he notices a small figure making its way up towards the hut. "The air is so clean here," says Marek to himself on the veranda. "Here, thank God, the Absolute is just an abstract idea. He's trapped inside everything. He's hidden inside these woods and mountains, inside this lovely grass and this blue sky. He isn't loose in this part of the world. He doesn't spread terror here, doesn't perform any magic. He's just bound up as a part of all matter. God is here, deep inside everything, but he's quiet, doesn't even breathe, simply silent and watching." Marek put his hands together in a silent prayer of thanks. "God, the air is so clean here." The man who had been climbing his way up from below stopped under the veranda. "At last, Marek, I've found you." Marek, not very pleased, looked up. Standing in front of him was G.H. Bondy. "Found you at last," Mr. Bondy repeated. "Come on up," said Marek, clearly displeased. "What brings you here, of all places? Look at the state of you!" G.H. Bondy did indeed look haggard and yellow. His temples had turned gray, and there were clusters of tired wrinkles around his eyes. Without speaking, he sat down next to Marek and put his hands between his knees. "Well, what's been happening to you, then?" insisted Marek after a tense pause. Bondy waved his hand. "I'm going to retire. You see, it happened to me, too." "The grace of God?" exclaimed Marek, and he sat back weakly, as if suddenly ill. Bondy nodded. Could that have been a tear of shame quivering there on his eyelashes? Marek quietly whistled. "Even you, then? I pity you." "No," objected Bondy promptly, as he wiped his eyes. "Don't get the idea that I'm still... Ruda, I somehow overcame it. I bit through it. But when it came to me, it really was the happiest time of my life. You've no idea how much effort it takes to get rid of it." "I'm sure it does," said Marek seriously. "So tell me, what sort of symptoms did you have?" "Love for my neighbor," Bondy whispered. "Ruda, I was insane with love. I would never have believed it was possible to feel love like that." There was a period of silence. "So, now then," Marek resumed, "now I've got over it. It felt just like when a fox bites off its own foot to get out of a trap. And it's left me damned weak, too. I'm a complete ruin, as if I'd had typhus. That's why I've come up here, to recuperate. Is it clean here?" "Perfectly clean. So far there's been no sign at all of him. You can sense God in the landscape and nature and everywhere, just like you always have in the mountains, but that's all." Bondy was silent and grim. "And what," he said confusedly after a while, "what do you think of it all, then? Do you even know what's actually been going on down there?" "I get the papers. Even from newspapers it's possible to work out what's going on to some extent. It's all very confused, but if you can read between the lines... Bondy, tell me, is it really as horrifying as it sounds?" G.H. Bondy shook his head. "It's worse than you think. It's just hopeless. Listen," he whispered in his despair. "He's simply everywhere. I think he's got some kind of clear plan." "Plan?" exclaimed Marek, jumping up from his seat. "Don't keep shouting. He's got some kind of plan, I tell you. He's as sly as the devil. Marek, tell me, what's the greatest power on earth?" "England," replied Marek unhesitatingly. "Not at all. The greatest power on earth is industry. Industry and the mass of the common people. They're the greatest power on earth. Can you see his plan now?" "No. He's taken hold of both of them. He's taken hold and he's in control of both of them. And that means he has a hand in everything. Everything shows that he wants to take control of the whole world. That's what he's doing, Marek." Marek sat back down. "Listen, Bondy," he said. "I've had plenty of time to think things over up here in the mountains. I keep an eye on what's going on, and I compare all the evidence. In fact, I don't think about anything else. I don't know what it's all leading to, but one thing I'm sure of is that he doesn't have any kind of plan. He still doesn't have any idea what he's doing. Perhaps he hopes to do something big, but he doesn't know how to go about it. Let me tell you, Bondy, all he is so far is a natural force. He's hopelessly uninformed about politics. He's a complete barbarian about economics. He should have taken over the church. They do have some experience in... Sometimes he seems to me just like a child." "Don't you believe that, Ruda," Bondy warned him earnestly. "He knows perfectly well what he wants. That's why he threw himself into industry. He's more modern than we previously thought." "Industry is just a plaything for him," Marek objected. "He just wants something to do. He's like some kind of divine childhood. But I think I can see what you're trying to say. He can do an enormous amount of work. What he's capable of is overwhelming. But everything he does is just nonsense. There can't be any kind of plan behind it." "Even the most nonsensical things in history have been carried out according to carefully laid plans," G.H. Bondy declared. "Bondy, look at these papers I've got here," said Marek, speaking fast. "Look at each of the steps he's made. I'm telling you, there's no coherence to it at all. It's all just improvisation, and a display of what he can do. The tricks he performs are enormous, but they're somehow blind, incoherent, confused. Can't you see? There's not a speck of organization in anything he does. He came into the world unprepared, and that's his weakness. I'm impressed by him too, but I can still see his weaknesses. He's a bad organizer, and probably always has been. He has ideas of genius, but they're incoherent. I can't understand why you still can't see this, Bondy, somebody as sly as you are." "There's nothing you can do against him," thought Bondy. "He takes hold of your soul, and you've had it. If he can't persuade you by reason, he sends some miraculous enlightenment to take you. You know what happened to Shovel." "You think you can run away from him," said Marek, "but I'm going to hunt him down, and I'm already close on his heels. I've already got to know him well enough, and I might be able to prepare a warrant for his arrest. Appearance: infinite, invisible, faceless. Place of abode: everywhere in proximity of an atomic motor. Occupation: mystic communism. Offenses warranting arrest: theft, unauthorized activity as a medical doctor, illegal assembly, impeding official activity, etc. Distinguishing characteristic: omnipotence. To be arrested on sight." "Now you're making a joke of it," said Bondy with a sigh. "It's not a laughing matter. He's overpowered us." "Not yet," exclaimed Marek. "Listen, Bondy, he still doesn't know how to govern. When he's tried to do something new, he's made a complete mess of it, such as throwing himself straight into massive overproduction instead of first building some miraculous railway system. Now he's got himself into a real mess, and all the things he's made are no good for anything. All this miraculous abundance has been a complete waste. Secondly, he penetrated all the offices with his mysticism and stopped all the administration work just when it's most needed to keep order. You can have a revolution any time you want, but leave officialdom alone. Even if you want the end of the world, you first destroy the universe and leave officialdom till last. That's just how it is, Bondy. And thirdly, just like some hopelessly naive armchair communist, he's destroyed the money system, and thus, at a stroke, crippled the distribution of goods. He didn't know that the laws of the market are stronger than the laws of God. He didn't know that manufacturing without commerce is simply nonsense. He didn't know anything. He went about it well, in short, he destroys with one hand what he makes with the other. We have miraculous abundance, and at the same time, catastrophic need. He's omnipotent, and all he's created is chaos. I can believe that at one time he really did create the laws of nature and the dinosaurs and the mountains and anything else you might name. But commerce, Bondy, I can guarantee you he did not create our modern system of industry and commerce, because he clearly doesn't have the slightest idea about it. No, Bondy, industry and commerce are definitely not from God." "Wait," G.H. Bondy interrupted him. "I know that what he's done has been a catastrophe, a boundless catastrophe. But what can we do about it?" "For now, nothing. All I'm doing for the time being, my dear Bondy, is watching and comparing. It's a new Babylon. Look at these papers here. They're published by the Church and suggest the present confusion in matters of religion might well have originated with diabolic sophistication from the Freemasons. The national press puts the blame on the Jews. The right is blaming the left. Farmers are hurling themselves at liberals. It's all about to burst, and believe me, even this still won't be the main battle. I think the real muddle is only just beginning to get started. Come closer, Bondy. I want to tell you something." "What?" "Do you think he... you know what I mean by he... do you think there's just one of them?" "I don't know," Bondy replied. "Does it matter?" "Everything depends on it," answered Marek. "Come closer, Bondy. Listen." Chapter 17. The Hammer and the Star. "Brother of the First Watch, what do you see to the east?" asked the venerable master, dressed all in black but for his white leather apron and a silver hammer in his hand. "I see the master masons assembled in the workshop and ready to work," said the First Watch. The venerable master struck with his hammer. Brother of the second watch, what do you see to the west? I see the master masons assembled in the workshop and ready to work. The venerable master struck 3 times with his hammer. Let work commence. The brothers of the Hammer and Star Lodge of the Free French Masons sat, their eyes fixed on their venerable master, Mr. G.H. Bondy, who had called this extraordinary meeting. The workshop was as quiet as a church. Its walls were hung with black drapes in which were embroidered the fundamental tenets. Bondy, the venerable master, looked pale and thoughtful. Brothers, he began after a while, I have called this extraordinary meeting in order to, against the secret precepts of our order, more than just a formality. I know this is a violation of the holy character of our mission. I call on you to pass a motion on a matter of great seriousness, a matter facing the public, a matter of enormous scope. There was general agitation. The venerable master is entitled to lay this task on us, the Judex Formidabilis declared. So, G.H. Bondy began, this is because our order is faced with a concerted attack from the Church. They claim that our secret activities, are in some way connected with the regrettable events which have been taking place in the fields of industry and religion. Papers supporting the Church contend that the free-thinking lodges deliberately summoned up demonic powers. They claim that what we do, our actions, in the face of the current catastrophe, for the benefit of mankind, in honor of the Supreme Being, I open the floor. There was a period of ceremonial silence, and then the second watch got to his feet. Brothers, at this historical moment I welcome these, as it were, profound words from our venerable master. He tells us, so to speak, of regrettable events. Yes, we who, as it were, strive solely for the benefit of mankind. It is our duty to declare that all these regrettable miracles, enlightenments, fits of neighborly love, and other disturbances are events which, so to speak, are highly regrettable. It is our duty, with all the secrecy appropriate to our order, to deny, as it were, any connection with the regrettable facts which, so to speak, are not a part of the traditions or the progressive principles of our great order. Brothers, these regrettable principles are, so to speak, fundamentally opposed to that which, as our venerable master quite rightly expressed it, and because the Church, as it were, has taken up arms against us, and if we bear in mind, if I may express myself thus, the highest benefit of mankind, and I therefore propose, in the fullest sense of the word, that we show our full support for these regrettable events, as our venerable master so rightly put it. The Judex Formidabilis stood. Venerable master, I would like to say something if I may. I would certainly agree that certain events have been spoken of here, and in a regrettable way. I, however, take the view that these events are not as regrettable as our brother, the second watch, seems to think. It is true that I am not clear as to which events our brother, the second watch, has in mind, but if he is thinking of the religious assemblies which I attend myself, then I am forced to the opinion that he is mistaken, or even, to put it plainly, that he is wrong. I propose, said another brother, that the matter should be put to a vote, to decide whether the aforementioned events are regrettable or not. I suggest, said another voice, we appoint a select committee to examine these regrettable events. 3 members should be about the right size. 5 members. 12 members! Brothers, please, the Judex Formidabilis said. I have still to finish speaking. The venerable master struck with his hammer. Brother Judex Formidabilis has the floor. Brothers, the Judex began gently, let us not squabble over words. The events that have provoked these regrettable opinions are of a nature that deserves our interest, our observation, and even our attention. I do not deny that I have taken part in a number of religious circles through which the special grace of God has been conferred. I hope this is in no way in any conflict with the rules or discipline of the Freemasons. Not at all, several voices agreed. Further, I admit that I have myself had the honor of carrying out a number of small miracles. I do not believe that this is in conflict with my rank or my position. Certainly not. I can therefore assure you, based on my own experience, that these events, far from being regrettable, are dignified, elevating, and honorable, that they contribute to the well-being of mankind and the glory of the Supreme Being, and that, from the Freemasons' point of view, there cannot be any objection to them. I propose that this lodge declare its neutrality towards all these manifestations of the presence of God." The first watch stood and said, "Brothers, I myself don't quite believe all of these things. I haven't seen anything, and I don't know anything. But I do believe it's better for us to be in favor of something religious than against. I think there's nothing in it myself, but why do we have to go and make an announcement about it? So I suggest we let it be known, secretly, that we have the best information about this, and that we agree that things should stay as they are." The venerable master raised his eyes and said, "Brothers, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that the Confederation of Industry has elected the Absolute its honorary president. I'd also like to point out that shares in MEAS, known as shares in the Absolute, might well continue to rise. There is also a donor who wishes not to be named who has given 1,000 of these shares to the Widows and Orphans Fund of our lodge. Please carry on." "In this case," the second watch declared, "I would like to take back, so to speak, these regrettable events. Seen from the highest point of view, I am totally in agreement. I urge us all to discuss the matter, as it were, from the highest point of view." The venerable master raised his eyes and said, "I need to point out that the Supreme Lodge intends to issue its own instructions about recent events. It recommends Masons to join these religious circles and organize them along Freemason lines as apprentice workshops. In this way, new workshops will operate in a spirit of enlightenment in opposition to the Church. I recommend you look into denominations of various kinds: monistic, temperance, Fletcherian, vegetarian, and so on. Each of these circles follows a different faith, and we can gain practical experience as to which of them is best for the benefit of mankind and the glory of the Supreme Being. The Supreme Lodge instructs all Masons to carry out these commands. Please, carry on with the discussion." This recording is under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, Share-alike license. Music was composed by Uzeyir Hajibeyov and performed by the United States Navy Band. The book was written by Karel Čapek, translated by David Wyllie, and performed by Francis Bass.